Hey guys, so this has been an idea that I've had for a few weeks, and this seems like the week to try it out. So pretty much the idea is that I'll be coming out with a video every weekday for all 5 days, and that I'll be focusing on a topic throughout the entire week, and every day I'll expand on it. Now, for the first time doing this, I wanted to focus on a subject that I thought I knew really well, and that's why I focus on John Green books Looking for Alaska. So let's get right into discussing the cover. First off, you can see the large plume of smoke coming from the extinguished candle right there. Now this can point to a lot of things in the book, all of which we will discuss as we get there. Now, the back also has a connection with the before and after being the main part of which the book is split up into. The book is also split up even further into blank days before and blank days after, in which Miles tells his story. And we can also see this plume of smoke dividing the before and after, which also is a reference to what happens in the book. Now going into the book, we find our main character Miles Halter 136 days before at his house in a going away party before he departs to a boarding school called Culver Creek in Alabama for his junior year. Now, his parents thought that he would have a lot of friends coming to this party, but only 2 people show up and very quickly leave. The thing is, Miles wasn't really fazed by this. He expected this, as he knew he didn't have many friends. But his parents were depressed for him. And his mother even asks if this is why he wants to go to a boarding school instead of the public school of which he has been going to. And Miles replies to this by telling his mother that he is going to the boarding school to seek a great perhaps, which is the last words of Francois Rabelais, who was a poet. And the thing is, Miles is fascinated with last words of people. He says that it was an indulgence, learning last words. Other people had chocolate, I had dying declarations. Now this is a very important quote which is repeated over and over again throughout the book and is built upon by Miles as he goes through high school. The next day he goes to move into his dorm and meets Chip Martin, who goes by the Colonel. In this section we learn a lot about the physical characteristics of the character. Miles is described as being 6 foot exactly, the same height, as he points out, as JFK, and extremely skinny. And the Colonel is described as being well built and, by Miles, 5 feet and nothing. In the first few hours of meeting, the Colonel gives Miles his first nickname, Pudge, and this nickname goes throughout the entire book. And during this time, the Colonel also introduces Miles to the way that the school runs with its no-rat policy, which the Colonel stands very strongly by. The Colonel also goes to telling Miles about the Weekday Warriors, a group of kids who are rich and who go every weekend to their parents' mansions, as the Colonel describes it. And the Colonel points out that he hates the Weekday Warriors. He describes them as the cool kids. And one of the main reasons why he hates them is because they are all rich, and the Colonel is very poor and comes from very poor background. So after the Colonel gives Pudge the lowdown, they go to meet the Colonel's friend, Alaska, for cigarettes. Instantly on site, Pudge describes Alaska as being the hottest girl in the world in cut-off jeans and a peach tank top. Then he goes on to say, I stared, stunned partly by the voice... Then he goes on to say, I stared, stunned partly by the force of the voice emanating from the petite but god-curvy girl. This is important. Throughout the entire book, Pudge will regard Alaska as larger than life, and will put up with her when he feels she is being annoying, bitchy, because of her beauty. In this section, Miles also shows the reader one of his narration styles, which is to put a list incorporated into the sentence. After meeting Alaska, the Colonel and Pudge go off and walk around campus as Pudge tries his first cigarette. Now on the swing, Pudge tries smoking again in order to ward off the bugs. And just as he's about to leave, he is pushed back into his seat by Alaska. It is here that one of the most important quotes and ideas comes up in the book, and that is when Alaska tells Miles the last words of Simon Bolivar. Damn it, how will I ever get out of this labyrinth? Now this quote will come up throughout the entire book, and it is one of the main driving factors of the after section. It is right after this that Pudge describes Alaska intimately. Now is as good a time as any to say she was beautiful. In the dark beside me she smelled of sweat and sunshine and vanilla, and on that thin moon night I could see little more than her Sithouslet, except for when she smoked, when the burning cherry of the cigarette washed her face in pale red light. But even in the dark, I could see her eyes, fierce emeralds. She had the kind of eyes that predispose you to supporting her every endeavor. And not just beautiful, but hot too, with her breasts straining against the tight tank top, her curved legs swinging back and forth beneath the swing, flip-flops dangling from her electric blue painted toes. It was right then, between when I asked about the labyrinth and when she answered me, that I realized the importance of curves, of the 1,000 places where girls' bodies ease from one place to another, from arc of the foot to ankle to calf, from calf to hip to waist to breast, to neck to ski slope nose to forehead to shoulder, to the concave arch of the back to the butt to the etc. I noticed curves before, of course, but I never quite apprehended their significance. Her mouth close enough to me that I could feel her breath warmer than the air. She said, "That's the mystery, isn't it? The labyrinth, living or dying? Which is he trying to escape, the world or the end of it?" I waited for her to keep talking, but after a while, it became obvious she wanted an answer. After discussing the labyrinth with Miles, she goes on to talk about her and Colonel and their pranking reputation, and also her life's library. Finally, the night ended as they came to an agreement. Miles would find the meaning of the labyrinth, and Alaska, she would get him laid. The next day was the day before classes started, and a day where Miles met two people. Mr. Starnes first. He is the dean of students and whom the Colonel calls the Eagle. Takumi was second, with Pudge describing him over lunch as a Japanese guy a few inches taller than the Colonel. And at the lunch table they discussed the story of Myra, Alaska's former roommate who got kicked out because of someone ratting. And the Colonel, taking these things very seriously, wanted to get to the bottom of it. Later that night, Pudge was awoken by a group of strangers, taken to the lake on school grounds, duct taped head to toe like a mummy still in his underwear, and thrown into the lake. After escaping the confines of the duct tape, Miles decides to go to Alaska's room, where she basically tells him to grow up and to deal with it. Pudge, realizing that he won't get the comfort he wanted, goes back to his room to the Colonel. Here the Colonel explains to Pudge that this was part of the initiation where the new kid always gets thrown into the lake and that it happened to everyone. But the strangers weren't supposed to duct tape Pudge. They did that because they believed that the Colonel ratted on Myra. But the strange thing is, when Pudge goes to sleep, he's not scared that he almost drowned on the first day of school. He tells the reader that he is feeling, probably for the first time in my life, the fear and excitement of living in a place where you never know what's going to happen. And that pretty much sums up the events of what will happen in the book. They are at times random and elicit random responses. Now that is as far as I'm going to go into the book today. Hopefully tomorrow I can do about 50 pages more. I got up to page 29, so I hope to get to page maybe 80. But before I end this, I just wanted to point out that the Colonel got Pudge to smoke. And that could be a direct connection to the cover, which is either the sideways smoke getting blown out like a cigarette. There's also the fact that the Colonel has a tendency to come out with nicknames for people. And that backs up Alaska's statement that he is a leader and that he is the master planner of the pranks. But that is going to be it for today, so go read the book if you haven't, and thank you for watching. Bye.